Oh, let's do it live on a draft day Thursday edition of Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet. Coming soon to Ohio. I am merely Bo. He is the great Z. There you go, buddy. No, one more. Yep, now you're good.
It's finally here. And it's so weird because this does not carry any of the normal draft excitement that you would expect it to carry. An opportunity to add, a superstar to your team, somebody that will be a pillar of your team, a first-round pick that you hope, and in case of the Browns, obviously that didn't work out so well for many, many years, but somebody that you would hope would be a pillar of your team on a good contract, and that's how you get better, in one day. And that's not going to happen for us. We're not picking tonight. And I think you guys you've heard Andrew Berry say it many, many times. You don't have to watch tonight for hoping the Browns are going to trade back in the first round. They're not. So it's interesting. It's weird. It's almost like it isn't happening, but then it is happening because Gibbe reminded me that I'll be here from 7 to midnight tonight.
There you go.
7 to midnight tomorrow night, which will be a little bit more fun. And then a bonus hour on day 3,
nice.
12 to 4.
There was I was talking about this on Monday when you were off, and both of you guys has experienced through this because you've been in this organization a long time. Gibby, you've been in this market for a very, very long time. I don't know if the people who cover the team or the fans even know how to act when we don't, because for the longest time this was the Super Bowl.
Yes.
And we coined that after the Beckham trade because, we were the 4th pick to go to the Super Bowl that year.
Yep.
From a betting standpoint. And we've reached a point with the roster, and now it's a lot more difficult now than it was then in terms of the roadmap because of how difficult the AFC is, even though our team's significantly better.
Yeah.
That the Super Bowl is the Super Bowl. We remember saying that. Like, this was the price, and now this is where you are. And I don't know if – I still have people, like friends of mine, like, oh, man, what I'm like, dude, we're not picking until 73. Hang back.
Yeah.
There's,
74
so
it's a long way.
It's a long way.
Yes.
And so I don't know if we know how to behave.
I think every other team in the league will have drafted 2 players at a minimum by the time we've drafted.
Well, there's 4, aren't there, that have 2 picks in the first round?
Yeah.
Seattle, Detroit, Houston. There's one more? I thought there was one more.
By the way, when we were talking, the reason that New Orleans has the number 1 from the Russ trade is Sean Payton.
There you go.
Just coming back full circle on that.
There
so
you
maybe
go.
New Orleans has too.
They probably do, right?
Why wouldn't they?
Unless they gave one for Carr. They didn't give one for Carr.
No.
Carr was a free agent. That's right. They screwed that whole thing up.
They sure did.
Yeah, but I don't think anyone the town doesn't know what to do.
Well, but you got Elijah Moore. You can look at that.
No, of course. Remember when we got Beckham, we said if you're John Dorsey, you say with the 16th pick we draft Odell Beckham Jr., wide receiver of the New York Giants. Like, that's why you did that. But it's still, I don't think people know what to do.
No, and it's a strange thing. Yes, the Super Bowl is the Super Bowl, but we've got a long way to go to get to the Super Bowl. And so you kind of have this, it perpetuates in my mind and elongates an offseason that is one of hurry up and wait. I mean, that's what this offseason is. And normally you'd have this draft to get super excited about and, we're going to get, a starter or 2 or somebody who's going to be an impact player. But that's not the case this year. And, had you been picking 12th overall, you probably would have gotten somebody of significant note in this draft. But you've got Deshaun Watson. So you could say with the 12th pick in the draft, we have Deshaun Watson. With the 42nd pick in the draft, we've got Elijah Moore. And then our draft will start. And that's where you're at, and that's fine. And it is weird, though, to watch tonight knowing that, there is no chance that the Browns are going to pick. And this will be the second year in a row, barring something crazy. And I think if there was one team that the Browns might trade into the second round with, it would be at the very end of the second round. You would trade with the Eagles because I believe the Eagles do not have 3rd, 4th, or 5th round picks in this draft. And so maybe you can get 62 from them with a combination of your later picks. Maybe
our buddy Sal Powell this morning reporting that Howie Roseman has reached out to just about every team in the league. Trying to acquire
get
picks.
back into those. Yep. Yeah. Well, because this is where you are now as an organization is you need to buttress the guys behind the guys. Like, you need Alex Wright to come along. Like, you need Perry and Winfrey straight and narrow. Like, the guys you picking in this draft, you need to hit on them because they have to be people you can rely upon because you're paying everybody else.
Well, that's why to me, if you could trade a third and a fifth, since you have two of those, and get into the second at 62, to go up 12 spots from 74, like I would be all about that and get somebody that you really, really covet. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, but again, that doesn't start.
Tomorrow.
That's still Friday. We will not make a pick tonight. Period. The end.
What was you guys have been here a long time, longer than I. This will be the third time that since I've been here that we haven't had a first round pick. This is my 6th off season, so it's happened 3 times now.
And we used to have like 4 a year.
Right.
And it also didn't matter.
No, it didn't. And a lot of time, there were several where we had 2 where we knew and all of this stuff. What was your most fun draft experience as part of the organization? The most fun day of the draft. Forget what happened afterwards.
2014, easy.
John football.
Hold on.
Was
backstory.
Lunacy.
I was in New York. I was at
Radio City.
Radio City. I was at Radio City.
Yep.
It was my first pre-draft TV that I'd done with the Browns. I'd done Browns Daily in 2013, but then I became full on in going into the 14 season. And I did a stand-up that said the Browns were going to trade back early in the draft. And I was talking to a few people, and again, this is like not from internal, even though I had an idea of some things internally at that time, but I didn't know that this is how it was ultimately going to play out. That we were going to trade back, draft a corner, and then trade up and draft our quarterback, which is exactly what we did. But when we traded back in at 22, the electricity in Radio City Music Hall was like a buzz. You could hear it. It was nuts. You could feel it. It was like the closest thing I could put it to is being at a WrestleMania and all of a sudden you know that somebody's on the top of the Hell in a Cell and they're about to go off it, or somebody's on the top of like a 20-foot ladder and they're about to jump off it, and you hear, or they just set a table on fire and you know somebody's going through it, and you hear this like electricity surge around you. It was like that. Then we picked John Manziel. People will lose their mind. I will never forget, I did a post-draft show, and then I am walking around. Browns fans are everywhere in New York City.
Of course.
Going nuts.
World's team.
Jumping up and down, bars, whatever. And I'll never forget, I'm walking back to our hotel a little later on, and a car comes by, and somebody like screams at me about how we got John football and how great the Browns are going to be, and just like, and probably some choice things for me personally. And I turn around and it was Alex Scheiner leaning out of like a black car screaming at me on the streets of Manhattan. That whole trip, that night, the aftermath of that was the most fun draft experience I've ever had by a billion.
Yeah.
Now it didn't match up to it.
No, it's probably the worst, as bad as any ever.
I mean, neither of them finished their rookie contract
Which is
in the,
I
in
don't
the
even
NFL.
know if there's even precedent for that.
I don't know.
2 first-round picks, neither one do.
No.
Yeah,
So, but that was it.
That was a crazy night.
Where were you? Were you here?
I was in the back hallway at ESPN Cleveland.
Okay.
Because
Your boy cried that night.
Yeah.
we were literally in the back hallway.
He wept.
It was crazy, but like I was also in charge of Sal Pal, and ESPN was live from here.
Oh, sure.
So the next day I had to bring him up here. He was doing hits on RBS. He was on with us.
Yeah.
But we had a bell that we would ring that's still here in this building somewhere. I hear it on occasion when they sell ticket packages.
Yep.
And every 30 seconds that bell was ringing. And Sal goes, "What is that bell?" And I told him, and next thing I know, there's a camera crew up here. Like, they were live at the bell. Like, he was right in the middle of Ticketville craziness, doing his hit, and he's like, tickets are flying out, jerseys are ordered. Like,
Oh, those 2 jerseys were just.
it was.
There was even like, didn't Nike put out a T-shirt that had like a 2 that said like "Wreck This League" or something on it?
And look at in this pic, the outside of the room. This is 2.
Oh,
2.
yeah. This is
2014
14 season.
week 2.
So that's up there. Number 1 for me might have been when I was running the draft show for ESPN, at a sports bar called Harpo's in Parma.
Okay.
Okay, it's when the draft was a Saturday Sunday event.
Yep.
Started at noon. 2007, we take the Hoff at number 3.
Yeah.
Okay, at 22, the helmet changes from Dallas
Oh, my
to
God.
Cleveland.
I was doing radio for you guys. I
Correct.
did that draft for you.
Yes,
I was there at Harpo's.
the guy at Harpo's was basically like, you guys have to buy your own food. We were there for 12 hours. So I said,
buy your own food.
So I said, screw you. We had this
Where you
van
guys
that
going
looked a little shady. It was like the Mystery Machine.
Of course.
And I traded out for an Italian feast in the van. Like, it's snowing outside. Like, people are going out from our staff to go eat in the van. Sit in the van. Like, there were like little stools, but there was this whole like spread in the middle of the van. I'm in the van, and the helmet changes, and I almost knock myself out jumping up to try to get out of the van because I've got to go back inside, and they announce Brady Quinn as the quarterback.
Yeah.
Was that Flacco in that draft too?
Well, it was Quinn and Rodgers, right? Wasn't Rodgers in that draft? No. Yeah, Rodgers was in that draft, right?
2007, you just said, Gibbe?
Brady, 2007, no.
Who's the first quarterback off in 07?
Jamarcus Russell.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Megatron was number 2.
Yeah, that's-
Joe Thomas was 3. Gaines Adams out of
I
Clemson went
remember
number
him, yeah.
4.
That's a pretty dang. I mean, Megatron and the Hoff.
So I did a few years then for you guys there because I also did the whatever year Joe Flacco got drafted, we were at that same place.
Yeah.
Had Greg Olson 31st in that
Brady
draft.
Quinn was the second QB off the board at 22 to the Browns. So the Browns had
So
gotten
you
their
got
franchise
the kid
left
from
tackle
Dublin who
and their
had
franchise
pictures of him in
quarterback.
a Kozar jersey, who was a star at Notre Dame, who somehow slipped to 22. That was the perception of it. That was my first. Year in Ohio. I was down at Channel 10 at that time, and Brady was a Dublin guy.
Yep.
And it was like, we have got to, Brady Quinn's going to play for the Browns.
Yep.
Like, this is happening. Like, all of the talk around that was Brady. It wasn't the Hoff.
No.
Because what are you going to talk about? A tackle, right? You got the quarterback? You got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
To have,
It was crazy.
listen to the top,
Rodgers is in the 05 draft with Alex Smith.
listen to the top 14 picks in this draft.
This is
Just who's in
this
it.
is 07.
Calvin, Hoff, Adrian Peterson, Patrick Willis, Marshawn Lynch, and Darrell Revis all went in the top 14 in that draft.
And if you want the secondary guys, Ted Ginn Jr., Jamal Anderson.
Not the Jamal. That's a defensive end, not the Jamal Anderson.
True.
I know
Yeah,
that is
that's
the Jamal. No, yeah,
No.
not the Jamal
No,
Anderson.
he was in
Defensive
the late 90s.
Yeah.
LaRon Landry.
The guy was a specimen. Specimen.
When did you guys know? So you did on the.
And that year, by the way, we went 10-6.
Oh yeah, Derek Anderson was
Yeah.
lights out. Yeah.
I want to go back real quick to that 14. So what was so fascinating, and what for me was the biggest learning in that, because that was the year I was like writing scouting reports and was able to kind of like, I didn't know necessarily what they were thinking. I did to some degree, but they knew what I was thinking, so I was able to
Yeah.
kind of be involved and whatever. And I remember on my report with Johnny was that like he's the guy that you can't pass up, but my conclusion was he's also the guy you can't draft because I wasn't privy. All I could do was watch him on tape. You know, I'm not privy to who he is as a person.
Yeah.
I'm not privy to, boy, it might be kind of just that easy to throw the ball up to Mike Evans. Turns out he's been pretty good in the National Football League. But also, does he care? Like, does he have the commitment to make it his lifestyle, or is he about just kind of improvising and running around? And you're able to do that in college, but you can't do that in the NFL.
Right.
You know, when what's like his competitive makeup. And I think that was one of the things. To me, you can read certain people, and I would say with somebody else even that we've experienced in our time here, where they strike you as uber competitive to the point where, in my mind, what that means is they hate losing so much they'll do everything in their powers to make sure that they don't. But that wasn't the case, obviously.
Right.
Like it's got to be all-consuming, and you've got to be fully committed. And I think you had two guys in that draft, both taken in the first round, both of them who had unbelievable gifts. Although did Johnny have unbelievable gifts? Maybe debatable, but certainly a charisma about him, an ability to make plays, and actually played some decent football for us. He had a nice game in Kansas City, I remember. He had a couple nice games, a big walk-off throw against Tennessee. But Justin Gilbert, if they don't love it, and it really doesn't matter how talented they are.
No.
And that's why I think you see teams have, the background checks. You have like psychologists involved trying to understand the makeup of the person, because you're drafting a human being.
Sure.
And people, a lot of times, I think you run into trouble where you have those kind of people that are like, yeah, I'll try hard when everything's going well, but when things aren't, I can at least, if I don't give it everything and put everything into it in the back of my mind, I can be like, well, that wasn't my best. So, like, you didn't really be my best. But I'm not going to allow myself to find out my best because I'm so afraid of that not being good enough.
Yeah, and it's you think about Bake, and you think about a lot of the things that we're talking about here with Johnny. Like, Bake would have passed all of those things with flying colors. Like, he has an electric arm. His accuracy was unbelievable at Oklahoma. His leadership was unquestioned. He was giving nothing. I mean, he had to earn everything he got at the college level. Was among the better college quarterbacks of all time from an experience standpoint. And so all of the coaches love him, players love him, teammates love him, all of that. But what was never going to show up on a pre-draft assessment was what happens if it starts to go bad, because it didn't. And so then it didn't go bad for him in college. Like, it all went really well.
He had a
and
little,
so,
yeah.
And it was one of those. Yeah, there was little stuff, but it was all kind of categorized in the category of, in the silo of uber confident, like the stuff at Kansas and that type of stuff. Like, it was all kind of in this one silo of like, well, he's just a competitor.
Right.
But then what you didn't know is that when it started to go wrong and people started to question, well, then he didn't respond well to that at all. He wasn't someone who would. He wasn't somebody who would push back in it. It was never about talent with him. It was the other stuff.
Well, part of it's in clutch meter. I mean, some things it just is.
Yeah, you just is. And he was somebody who needed to have like everybody rallying to him in order for him to play at his best. And when there were doubts about his talent or what he was seeing and what he wasn't, he was in his own head. I mean, I said it. He was like a front runner guy.
Yeah,
like
and that's why it's so. I think that's why
it's so hard.
So hard. Yeah, so hard.
When did you know Johnny didn't have it?
The first game he started against Cincinnati.
Man, Miz flew in for that. A bunch of people flew in for that. I think we got beat 35-0. I want to say something like that.
That's about right.
So,
like, did you know in camp? Were you in camp and you're like,
camp,
he doesn't?
So in camp, here two things were the problem with really understanding and being able to evaluate him. Okay. Well, the first thing was you had, Pettin scheming up against Kyle's offenses in practice, which, as Hoff has talked about, drove Kyle bananas and was like counterproductive for the offense. So, and the second thing I would say even more so, and maybe this should have been number one, is he was competing with Brian Hoyer. And Brian Hoyer was very smart as a quarterback. I would say he has maximized every ounce of what he is capable of to be in the league this long is kind of incredible, honestly. But he did not have a great arm. He did at times understand to go with where the ball, like I think that was his strength, was he understood. But I mean, you've seen as he's played in big games in other places, it just, he doesn't have it, but he's made a great career for himself and maximized his talent. If Johnny would have gotten the same percentage of his talent out of himself that Brian Hoyer did, Johnny would still be playing and probably would have started and taken teams to playoffs and been a very good quarterback in this league. But my point is, you would watch him do things that Brian Hoyer just wasn't capable of doing. And so it seemed as though he was maybe more special than he was based on what you were seeing him next to.
Yeah.
And then I would say as we got into it, as the season went on and you heard some of the behind-the-scenes things, that it was clear that, number one, that wasn't a quarterback room that was everybody was helping everybody.
Yep.
And that, number two, it became pretty apparent pretty quickly, I don't know that he has the disposition for this to be his lifestyle, which he is going to need it to be as an undersized guy who's not as fast as NFL players to make it work. Like, Moxie is great, but like Moxie can only take you so far.
You better have the top end talent, and then
and the
we
Moxie.
can talk Moxie all day long.
But if you don't, like if your best trait is Moxie,
It's got to be tangible.
So early on, I mean, and I was still new here, but I was close with some of the people on that staff and some of the players, and you got a sense pretty quickly that he would do some wow things, but that there were concerns about his.
We were 7-4 that
life.
season. He came in and we didn't win a game the rest of the year.
Well, and now you also have 16 more years of. You got to remember too, at that point, like you didn't realize what Kyle did with quarterbacks fully.
Right.
We have now 16 more years of him. Every quarterback who plays for him, he maximizes their potential and what they're capable of. So that 7-4 with Hoyer very well could have kept going at that pace because of Kyle, but in a way it's kind of fool's gold, right? Because as soon as Kyle's not there, then that falls away.
Oh, God.
So that's
Boy, did
you know what I mean? Like that's what happens. Like you didn't have you probably if you were somebody who was you were obviously very plugged in at that time, but like people around here I don't know if they realized we didn't know what a genius Kyle Shanahan was at that point.
I mean,
not fully.
Not fully. He was the youngest offensive coordinator, I think, in league history with Houston, and did a great job with Matt Schaub and Andre Johnson.
But that was under Kubiak, and at that time it was mostly Kubiak was given the credit for that.
Yeah.
No, you didn't. Kubiak's system. Like there wasn't a full appreciation of it. Really wasn't until he got to Atlanta, and you were like, oh, like look what he did here. Like all the way to the Super Bowl, Ryan's an MVP, all
look
that
what he's
stuff.
done in San Francisco again.
Well, since
and he's
but
never had.
What I'm saying, like in 2014, you didn't know that you were
Kyle
who he was or what he has become.
So you also had the
9 years.
Right, with his dad you had in Washington with RG3 and things like
But
I think that's
like,
fair.
That felt like that was his dad's got credit for that. Like it was almost like he hadn't proven that he could stand on his own 2 feet because his dad and Kubiak, that's the same tree. That's just people taking care of him. He played receiver
and that
at Texas
Washington staff had
McVay.
Wasn't
McVay?
Gruden's brother
Jay
on
Gruden
there?
was on that staff.
Yeah.
McVay.
Like there were some coaches.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So that he would have gotten lost. Yeah, in 2014,
you didn't know if he was like a trust fund baby or if he was legit at that point. We know now, but we didn't know then.
He was the OC in Houston from 08 to 09. He was the OC with the Redskins, then the Redskins 10 to 13. So he had the title anyway as an OC for 6 years. Goes
under his dad.
Then goes to the
and
Falcons
Kubiak,
directly
who's like his
from
uncle.
Here. Yeah, I mean he's.
So now, then he stands on his own. Like what I'm saying is
people here knew, I would say.
Right, but I don't think the fans knew, and I don't think the NFL at large knew what he was capable of until Atlanta. That's when it's like, oh, this is what we have our hands on here, and then the rest is history.
Yeah.
But up until that point, it's like, okay, so his dad hired him,
yeah.
and what's essentially his uncle hired him.
Yeah.
So, it's I love it. I love the draft. I love it. Before I got into this, this was when I was a kid. This is a big pepperoni and mushroom pizza day. You get that sucker, you set it out there. I'd take notes, rigorous notes. Who's going?
My buddy Janko and I
loved it. Man.
We would couch sitting all day.
Yeah. I mean, it is. I'm a Kuiper guy. Just love Kuiper. Love everything around it. Love the hope that springs eternal from it. You can talk yourself into anything, and it's fun.
Pretty sure we have on multiple occasions.
Yeah, man. Like the inexact science of it is stunning, though. I mean, and at quarterback, I think one of the biggest changes in this league is like you don't have a whole lot of patience for quarterbacks.
No.
You used to
have a lot more.
Now it's 1 and 2, 3 years, and we're on down the road, and we'll try it again next year. So no picks for us tonight, as we mentioned. We will pick on Friday as scheduled at 74 and 98.
Or maybe not.
So that's kind of where you stand at this point as we head into Friday night. There's a lot swirling around, including some consensus building about what could happen at the top, and could include something going on potentially with the former Ohio State Buckeye quarterback C.J. Stroud. So we'll keep you updated, as this is one of the big days on the NFL calendar. And while we are not participating, still a lot of fun. We're off and running. Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Bally Bet, coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Be sure to catch all the action of round one of the NFL draft tonight on 850 ESPN Cleveland on the University Hospitals Cleveland Browns radio network. Coverage starts at 8 with Ken, Gerard, and Z. You're joining closer to 8:30. Is this what I see in notations?
Yeah, because I got TV from 7 to 8, and then I got to come from
No pick, though. Why are you doing TV?
downtown, and then I'll come here. We're previewing the draft, dude. We still have picks to make. We still have improvements to this team.
Good sales pitch. First round analysis reaction. You can get it all tonight. There is there's something happened this morning just from the draft, and at the top of it feels like it all starts with Houston at 2 and then certainly at Arizona at 3, but Houston will be the first one making a decision. I saw several final mocks this morning that had Tennessee going up to 3 to draft C.J. Stroud. Kuiper had it. McShay had it. Others have,
We talked about that before I came in. Yeah, it feels like
that's what's coming.
So I think, and I'll give Cleve TA some credit for this, but he said it, and I said that makes a lot of sense. There's never been less information about who's going where, I feel like, than this year that's come out in the week before any of it.
I mean, the only information we have is based on betting odds, honestly. Like they
I think
swapped in the
that's
last month from Stroud to Young, but Stroud was the pick a month ago, and now it's Young.
My thought is, with all the gambling stuff and how seriously the league takes gambling, I think because this is heavily gambled on now, that they're trying to keep it under wraps.
Well, they are. They've succeeded because there's nothing out there, even on the Young camp stuff. And it moved this week with the Levis stuff, with the Reddit post. It moved, and I don't know. It feels to me like that if you kind of just comprehensively take a look at all of the mocks that are out there, it seems like Houston's going to go defense number 2.
I mean, that's what the general said. That's what Zerline said, and he's plugged in down there. Yeah, that's what it feels like.
If the Houston Texans stay at 2 and draft a defensive player, they better be damn sure that these other quarterbacks aren't it.
Yeah.
Because that is organizational malfeasance going back to the end of last season. Like if the apple of their eye was Bryce Young and only Bryce Young, if that's really what it was, and that the difference was enormous between him and everybody else, and you won that game.
So have you?
I mean, that's buffoonery.
We watched the play that won them the game. Have you seen the play?
He showed it to me today. Renner
4th and 20.
Okay.
From about the 30.
Okay.
4th and 20.
Okay.
It's on Renner's timeline. Mills just kind of chucks one up down the middle of the field. It looks to me like there's a Colt who absolutely should have intercepted the ball, and he just kind of doesn't, and it goes right to Jordan Akins for the touchdown.
All right, I'm watching it now.
There's a guy on the Colts who is in front of
there
where
are
this.
Guys.
Oh my gosh!
There are guys.
Don't you think that guy missed on? I mean, he had to have.
All right, let me pull. I need to pull this up for a full screen. All right, so it's Davis Mills.
Yep. And he drifts,
All right,
and then
he
just
drifts, and just throws it off his back foot as he's being hit into the middle.
But there's a Colt guy that's right there who misses it.
Well, not only that, there's like 8 Colt guys.
Yeah, everybody watches him. It's like, who was tanking that game? I don't know if it was the Texans, but it sure looks like it was the Colts.
The Colts don't want them getting the quarterback they want either. Look at this moron. He doesn't even realize what he's done. Okay. Okay, so there is a guy who jumps from the Colts.
Who it feels like had it.
Feels like could have knocked. It feels like it went right over his head, quite honestly. And then who's 88 for the Texans? 88 for the
Akins,
Texans.
that's our guy.
That's our new tight end.
Our new tight end.
Well, that's our guy.
That's our guy. It's Akins.
You got to be kidding me. That's him?
Yeah.
So he's so unaware of what's going on that he celebrates and is holding the ball like we've done something. His teammates are doing the same. Why wouldn't they be? They're playing in the NFL. It's what you're supposed to do, right? But they're
playing for their coach, who they know is going to get fired.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And so then what happens on the 2-pointer? Because they go for the win. So
they get it, and they get the 2.
Okay, so this is just it's just Mills. Mills just put it. He hit him again. It's Akins on the 2.
It's Akins. I thought we got.
Well, he's a good-looking target.
Great looking target. When you need a guy's got clutch meter, obviously. We know it.
Wow.
Yeah.
The number of Colts around the ball, and not one even dives or tries to make a play.
Yeah, but you still could have salvaged it
by just stopping the 2-point conversion.
The other thing you could have done is just kick the field goal and kept it going into overtime.
Kicked extra point.
I'm sorry, the extra point, and just gone into overtime, they would have had the tiebreaker, wouldn't they, with the Bears?
Yeah.
So they could have just done that.
Or they
Like, there
could
was
have
still
just
another way.
on 4th and 20 just kicked a field goal.
That would have done it too.
Field goal.
Field goal unit. We're going to do an onside kick. You know what they always say? Take the automatic points, get that
Yeah,
3,
get that 3.
then get out there and do it that way.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Wow.
So, real quick, just as can I give a quick aside of something
please.
that I came across yesterday that was
please.
the most kind of, and then followed by, So Steve Keim.
Yep, Arizona.
The
GM. Remember when we were at the combine and he dressed like Kingsbury?
Yeah. Like stuffed like a sausage.
Go ahead, Steve Keim.
Was on Dan Patrick yesterday.
Yes, he was.
Do you know about this?
You're going to do the Bosa story? Is that the
No.
one you're going to do, the Kyler story?
No.
Okay, then I don't.
This is a quote from him,
Okay,
and I think it explains a lot about his current situation.
okay.
Draft Day is probably the most accurate movie I've seen.
That is not.
How does somebody like that ascend to being in charge of
That is not
personnel acquisition with an NFL team?
He did follow it up by saying teammates not going to a party is a huge red flag. But there is not. First of all, you can't trade 3 seconds for the 6th overall pick. That doesn't work. That doesn't add up.
I want all my picks back.
That doesn't add up.
You also, did you guys see this thread this morning of like
The driving?
The driving?
Yeah, it was a great job. Shout out to that guy.
The guy was amazing
Unbelievable.
on the driving. Like,
They're like over in my neighborhood and then simultaneously downtown. And I mean,
like
it's
it was like
insane. It's like a 3-hour drive.
I've never seen that movie in like from
Oh,
start
really?
to finish. Like I've seen parts of it, but I've never like
Miss K's in it.
from an entertainment.
K's in it?
Yeah, from an entertainment standpoint, I was entertained by it, but at no point do I think that any of this is real.
It's so not realistic, and for a guy who was a GM to be like,
There's
I
a
think
bunch
it's the
of
most
people in
realis-
this
most
building
accurate
that were in that
I've
movie.
seen. Wow. Rush, I think Rush had a nice cameo.
wow.
Yeah. Is that
That's stupefying.
stupefying?
That you would say something like that. And so, yeah, like I haven't seen it start to finish, but just if it's on, I'll watch for 10 minutes here or there, and so I'm very familiar of the premise and what's happening with it.
And none of it that is not realistic.
No,
Not none of it. I'm sure there are things that are realistic, but not that.
isn't Jonah Ryan from Veep like
Yes.
Costner's dude?
Yes, that's a great pull.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I mean, he's so good in Veep. That would have been funnier if he would have played that character as Jonah Ryan. That would have been a great job right there. No, that's pretty problematic when you think about it. So, yeah, that was funny. But that guy this morning I saw on Twitter, like from like Rocky River to Geauga Lake, back by somehow driving by the West Side Market, then ending up here, but driving the wrong way into here, like a 2-hour drive to work. Were they
Unreal.
acting like the owner owned the amusement park? Is that what they were acting like it was?
I think so.
Man, I've never, since I've been here, like those slides weren't up at Geauga Lake since I've been here.
No,
Those slides went down in the summer of the year that the Cavs won the championship.
16.
That summer, well, that was it. It closed, I think, forever. Maybe like that July.
Okay.
Or
Okay.
that season.
But up until that point, they still had water slides and all that. Yeah.
those 3 at the top of that tower were
Fantastic. Really?
they were
great. Of course, no one's had a bad time on a water slide. It's the
Oh
best.
it's a
God!
nice little water park. Underrated.
Yeah.
Well, it's gone.
And didn't Cedar Fair buy it and then close it so that they could, because they have it up there now, right?
Yeah, and that
Pretty
water
sure.
park up there stinks.
Even the new? Because they've,
What?
I think
Since
it's
when?
in the last year or two, they put new
Then
slides
maybe
in.
it's better. Well, when I went with the kids in 19,
Yeah, I think they've
it
done.
was
I think they've done
lacking.
New. I think they've done new since then.
All right, good. Love to hear it.
Yeah, they're the best up there at Cedar Point. Good people.
Great people. It's an unbelievable park.
All right, you want to do? We'll do a little draft day thing or not a thing.
Yeah, you want to do that real quick?
Yeah, we got
Okay.
time. The Texans won't take a quarterback The Texans won't take a quarterback at number 2 overall.
Thing. John McClain says it and Zerline says it. They're both very plugged in Houston. Feels like thing.
Yeah, it does. It does seem that way to me. Tyree Wilson being drafted ahead of Will Anderson Jr.
Not a thing. Tyree Wilson's got a Liz Frank thing. Apparently his draft stock is plummeting right now.
So Will Anderson will go 2 overall if it holds that way.
Yes.
Will Levis's stock is actually rising.
I think he goes in the top 15. Does that make that a thing, or does that?
Well, he could go 4 to Indy.
No, I would say top 5. Like your stock's rising to the point where they're talking.
I mean, he cod go 4 to Indy. I mean, if Indy's like, we're taking a quarterback.
Yeah.
Stroud's off the board at 2 or 3.
Yeah, then he could go there for sure. Bijan Robinson will be a top 10 pick.
I don't think it's a thing. I think he is worthy of it. I just don't think it will be a thing.
Jay Glazer went off on the Lebitard podcast yesterday.
About what?
He said everybody doesn't want to. Everybody has him as a top 5 player in the draft, and he said, but no one wants to take it because the draft says, and the way things work now, you don't take a running back in the top 10. And he's like, you're all fools. Whoever gets him, he's
are you though?
Here's the. I've said this for the whole time on this kid. There is one spot, a team that has 2 1s, a team that has no weaknesses whatsoever, that if you put him there, good night nurse. And that's Philly.
Yeah. Yes.
If you put somebody that dynamic next to Jalen Hurts in a run-first scheme behind that offensive line and those weapons, good luck to you. Because not only would that be the perfect spot for him, but it would be the perfect spot to accentuate the quarterback. It makes him that more dangerous. The only places where it would be the case would be there in Baltimore. Those are the only places where you would have somebody else where you have to deal with back there.
Supposedly,
but Baltimore has too many needs. Like
too many needs.
Philly doesn't have needs.
And by the way, with Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, they are fine at running back.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's only Philly. There's no other place where I'd be like, oh yeah, that's what you got to do.
Supposedly the Eagles want to come up, and this is again speculation, but they want to come up and get either Jalen Carter.
The kid out of Georgia.
Yeah, because they have Nakobe Dean and Jordan Davis.
Mm-hmm.
So they feel like they could, with the Georgia influence, keep him on the straight and narrow. And then
I don't think he's a kid who wasn't on the straight and narrow. He did something really dumb that resulted not at his fault of being a part of something where 2 people lost their lives. I don't know that there's any other red flags with him.
Well, then he showed up to that workout, but he's probably dealing with quite a bit.
Quite a bit going on, I think.
I think supposedly that's what they want to do is go get him or like a dominant edge rusher if like Will Anderson fell. I would love to see them take Bijan. I think he's somebody that I would like to see go into the NFC. Although here's the thing. You can find, and look at all the best running backs in the league right now. You know, Saquon was taken early. He hasn't stayed healthy his whole career. It's just a position that you're kind of destined
That's why to me it's Philly because they have 2 1s and they don't need a lot.
Yeah.
So they could make it. It's a luxury pick. They could, if he's great for 4 years for them, home run.
Yeah.
Then that's it. Like the Bears, if they didn't have all the needs that they had, to put him next to Fields would be a problem, trying to decide who has the ball on that front.
Yep.
Trey Lance will be traded during the draft. Not a thing.
I don't think it's a thing either. According to Boots on the Ground, Pedro, not Pedro, he says, they're not idiots. I said, well, I don't think they are either, but they could have also just.
They're not good at the quarterback
They could have
I'll tell you that.
Tyreek Hill, Justin Fields, and Bradley Chubb.
So that's
for
a little
Trey
bit.
Lance.
That's a
so
little
it
bit.
feels like they got the wrong side of that deal.
But he still does he listen to reason, like with most things, when you give him that?
Yes. He thinks that yes. He's other things, no reason.
No. Stubborn as a mule.
That's right.
Wide receiver draft in his first round overrated.
It just doesn't seem to be like it was like we've become accustomed to, where every year it's like mega stars are coming out.
But it's going to be a 1-year hiatus because next year it'll be right back because you'll have Marvin Harrison Jr., you'll have Emeka Egbuka, you'll have that'll be 5
That's a great
Ohio
name.
Emeka Egbuka. You'll have 5 first-round Ohio State receivers in 3 drafts.
Do you think, okay, let me pose this to you. Best recent college receiving rooms, would it be this Ohio State iteration? Would it be that Alabama one that had
Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle and Ruggs
and Judy, right?
And Judy, yeah.
or LSU?
Jefferson and Chase. Well, I mean, the high end
And Terrace
Jefferson.
Marshall was pretty good for them
For
in
sure.
college.
Jefferson and Chase at the high end are just the two of the three best receivers in the league. So so at that point, that quality is so great.
Yeah.
We won't know because right now we have Wilson and Olave out of this Buckeye group, and they both were great. Wilson was the rookie of the year. Olave was great. I mean, what Wilson's going to do this year with Rodgers is going to be just ridiculous. So that feels like if it's between them or the Alabama group, it feels like Ohio State would fall in behind the high end of the LSU ahead of Bama. But you're betting on Smith and Jigba being what you think he is. Marvin Harrison is going to be the best player in college football next year. He just doesn't play quarterback.
Yeah.
But he's going to be that. Like, that's a fact. So, and then Ibuka was actually higher rated coming out. People forget how great he was because he got hurt last year. So I think that Ohio State group has a chance to be better in totality.
I like it.
But they got to
do
get
it.
there.
Yeah.
And Hendon Hooker will be taken higher than expected.
What are you using as a baseline for expectation there, Gibbe?
I'll say top 15.
No. I think if he goes in the first round, that means he was taken higher than expected. I mean, he hasn't been really first round.
There's going to be a few mocks
recently.
that disagree with you that we talk about next.
No one has a damn clue.
But that has been
So that would be he'd be the
recent.
fifth quarterback. Like, do they have him going ahead of other quarterbacks?
Yes.
Really? Well,
ahead
we'll
of
see.
Levis.
We'll see. I mean, remember last year what happened? Like, it was only Pickett.
Yeah.
Yep. And we thought they were going to be we thought Willis was going to be in the first round.
Yeah. All right, coming up next, we will take a look at some of those mock drafts. You'll listen to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. And there's a new way to cheer on your Cleveland Browns, the help of your favorite four-legged companion. Barking Backers presented by Milkbone, the Browns' newest club for pet parents worldwide. Sign up today at barkingbackers.com. Barking Backers, the fan club for dogs. Final mock drafts from luminaries, including Mel Kiper Jr. I referenced this earlier. There seems to be a consensus with the Titans moving up to the Cardinals to take C.J. Stroud at number 3. He has Will Anderson going 2. He has them getting Richardson at 12, so they get their quarterback and their defensive end. I was following some people down in Houston, and they get all excited about this number 3 pick that potentially this Houston could go up to 3, could
That's
trade
what
up with Arizona
Daniel
to 3.
Jeremiah has.
So he has them going back-to-back 2-3 to be able to do it. I mean, they could give up 12, and then they could give up next year's one
first.
from us.
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
I guess then you get the defensive player you want, and you get the quarterback you want.
Jeremiah says,
Shouldn't you take the
they
quarterback
want,
first then?
Well, either way, whatever the order of it is, I guess you could take the quarterback at 2 and then trade up to 3 to get the defensive
I feel like
end.
if you take the quarterback at 2, you have a better chance at the price to trade to 3 to be lessened.
No doubt.
So I don't understand taking the defense player and then paying the King's ransom still
To
for
pay
3.
to pay the quarterback. Yeah, it's a great point. Like, just take the quarterback at 2 and then trade up to 3 and take the
Right. And hopefully the quarterback you drafted at 2
I
is
guess
one
the
that
only-
somebody wanted to trade up for, so now it's reduced again.
Well,
the
and,
need.
and Jeremiah has that. He has in Daniel Jeremiah's one, he has Stroud to the Texans at 2, and then
he's got
Houston moves
so
up
he
at 3
does
to
the
take
common
Will.
sense.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
So he uses the common sense one to get to where Houston, because that would be the way that would be the order of things as opposed to the other way. Kiper has that deal that I just said with Stroud for 3. It would cost this from the Titans, likely involving pick numbers 11 and 41 in the draft, a 2024 1 and a top pick in 2025.
It sounds like a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah. I don't like what else. I don't like this Ravens taking Jackson Smith and Jigba.
I don't like that for Jackson Smith and Jigba either.
You know.
I would want. I mean, I don't need him in that division, and I don't need. He's just that
Go
would
and
just
play
he
with the
would not thrive there
Mm-hmm.
in any way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
Levis to the Colts at 4. Levis to me, and I could be very, very wrong on this. Most likely am. He feels to me a lot like Zach Wilson-y to me.
Okay.
Not necessarily in terms of style, just in terms of like wowed by certain things, but there's a whole lot that I think is being overlooked with him at number 4. The Ramets trading with the Chiefs to get Hendon Hooker, the quarterback out of Tennessee.
Okay.
One thing that would happen if all of this played out is like Tennessee would be trading Tannehill at that point, or attempting to trade Tannehill. And then what would the Rams try to trade Stafford? Is that
My
possible?
guess is that, or that Hooker sits for a year. And
Hooker's 24.
Isn't he coming off of an injury?
He's coming off a very serious injury,
Yeah.
either an Achilles or an ACL. I can't remember.
ACL.
So
yeah.
ACL. So, like, I guess what nobody knows about Stafford's kind of the thing that's floating out there because he's supposed to be healthy. If he is, he's
To me,
a top 10 quarterback in the league.
he-
Like if you put him on some of these other teams, and God knows you don't need him in the AFC, but if you put him on some of these other teams, it would feel like, well, there's an ascent.
He makes all the sense in the world for Miami.
Yeah, but we don't need that.
Could you imagine if Miami, the Jets, and the Bills were all that loaded?
No.
Me neither.
If you're Belichick, then you go
You
the other
tank.
way. You tank and you go.
Yeah.
We got to get our guy. Daniel Jeremiah has Stroud to the Texans, as Gibby pointed out. He has Houston moving back up to get Will Anderson at 3. At pick 19, Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Who is that? Who's
picking 19, Gibby?
Hold
He has
on.
Richardson not getting drafted in round 1.
Which is wild to me. That's the guy and I said this that we had on Tuesday. We had Dane on, or I had Dane on, and I was like, I've watched enough stuff with Orlovsky now, and all these people talk about him, and it sounds to me like that's the guy you would take.
Tampa
Richardson.
Bay at number 19.
Oh, jeez.
What do they need another receiver there?
They don't need a slot guy.
They got Godwin.
No.
That's silly. Anthony Richardson feels like the guy that you take.
You know what Renner told me on Tuesday? He said if Richardson's ceiling athletically is by far and away the highest of any by 100 miles. And he said, honestly, and he goes, I'm not even saying this facetiously, if he doesn't make it as a quarterback, he could go play tight end. Like there's a kid for Matt Jones, I think, from Arkansas, who did that for
Was a 1,000-yard receiver.
Yeah, who
in
did
the
that
league,
for
and
Jacksonville.
Then Logan Thomas.
And Logan Thomas, yeah. So there's some examples of that.
I just think he's gonna make it. I mean,
I think I screwed up.
you did screw up. He goes 20 to the Seahawks.
Yeah. I messed up.
And he said, I think he's in play for Seattle at number 5, but they'll definitely take him at 20.
Well, I mean, that's the
That's my
perfect
fault.
spot
I
for him.
overlooked
It's a
that.
bad job out of you, Gibby.
Sorry.
Sad. Small P. Dane Brugler. I wish I still had it.
It's over there. So
I mean, the one time I said it was amazing.
that's great.
So amazing. Brugler has Stroud going 4 to the Colts, Richardson 11 to the Titans, Levis 12 to the Texans. The Packers take a wide receiver now that Rodgers gone. Jackson Smith and Jigba from Ohio State going.
Aren't
there.
they at 13?
They are. They're at 13, and the Jets are at 15.
Yeah.
So they would
According
do
to
it
this
in front of. They would pick it in front of the Jets.
Okay. I like it.
I just
Yeah.
crushed this from a
Yeah, you did.
factual
Really good job.
standpoint.
It's all right. It's all
Hold
good.
on, I'm looking because I'm telling you.
Bring back Esteban.
Original Stevie. only.
Original.
Original.
Yeah.
The.
The.
All right, we've got a little fun with some prop. We'll have a little fun with that here in the second hour. We'll also take a look at the Baltimore Ravens. There is no news on the Lamar Ravens front. Nothing's coming out of it.
But
it does feel like
it
feels like he'll be playing there though, and it could be maybe something that happens today. We'll put some perspective on all that as well. Second hour here of a draft day edition of Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Bally Bet, coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. When a medical mistake causes you injury, call the medical malpractice attorneys at 1-800-ELK Ohio. Elk and Oak's proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. Final hour of the program here on a draft day edition. No first-round picks for us. We will not pick as scheduled until 74th overall. 73 will be selected before we do. There will be it would end up 3 teams in the first round with 2 picks, or is it 4? I know it's Detroit, Seattle,
Philly.
Houston, Philly.
Philly's got 2 firsts.
Philly.
10 and 30, I believe.
And then and then maybe Saints?
New Orleans has 29. And only 29, so that's our only
Okay,
first.
so
I
that's
wonder where
our
their
only one.
first went.
So there's 4 teams that have 2 first-rounders tonight.
And
Can you
who
imagine
knows?
that Philly
maybe
situation?
we'll trade our entire third round, day 3 draft.
And they used
for
a
the
pick to
second
get
round.
A.J. Brown. Like, it's madness.
What's amazing is, but it speaks to the luck of it.
Yeah.
Like, they picked second not that long ago and drafted Carson Wentz.
Well,
They didn't draft Jalen Hurts in the first round.
It's because they kept drafting, and they hit. They got a quarterback till they got one, yep.
Yeah, and they got one in the second round.
Yep.
And who nobody thought would be this. Nobody. And that's now here you go. All right, Gibby, what do you have here? You got a little prop fun
Yeah,
here?
there's
Let's do
actually
it.
prop bets for this year's NFL
I like
draft.
it. I like it.
Are we going to track these?
A little traveling music,
We're gonna
Paul.
track our,
We gotta
Have
track
a little
'em.
fun.
Track them.
Track them.
Zagura, you track them. I like it.
Keep your piece of paper here and write what you say.
Yep.
Number 1, how many round 1 draftees will be wearing glasses?
Is
that sunglasses or
Well, I was just going to say, is that indoors or out? Where's the stage? Outdoors?
it's outdoors?
Wearing glasses at the time of selection or wearing glasses when they shake the commissioner's hand? I'm going under.
I feel like it has to be when they get announced.
I think this is a tough one. Are you going to tell us what the outcome was, Gibbe?
I'm going to go under. Less than
I
8.5.
I will try.
If it's Kansas City time, so it's an hour behind.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So
it's
it's
7, it'll
7.
be sunny.
Oh, for sure. It'll be sunny for sure. But, like, I'm guessing they're not going to be out in the sun. They're going to be in a covered
green room.
in a green room.
But it could be people who wear
It'll be
glasses,
climate
like
controlled.
fashion glasses, not just shades.
There could be some of that. But I still think by the time you get to Goodell, you're taking the glasses off. So I think this would be a really tough one to adjudicate.
All right, I'm saying under, too.
Same. I don't know if I'll be able to find an answer for that, but I'll try based on how we're trying to define that.
That's a tricky one.
How many round 1 draftees will be wearing a tie? The over-under is 19.5.
I'm going to say over. I still think that's...
It feels like people are
that's
still
not too
doing
bad.
that, right?
I feel like
Guys are-
2/3 are still going to be in tie. Yeah.
It still feels like it's. I know that we have dramatically. Hey, there's our old buddy Omar Ruiz. I know we have very much casualized the look of an American society over the last decade
Yes,
plus
we have.
in dramatic ways. But I still think that and these things you'll see. I would go over as well.
I'm going under.
I don't remember what guys wore last year. I'm trying to remember like Garrett Wilson on the draft. Did he have a tie? Like
I don't know. Like they wear the
Umbrellas.
nice shirts and the sport coat or the
Yeah.
jaqueta.
Maybe a hoodie under would be great.
Total
real
round
prance,
1
isn't there?
trades. The over under is 5.5.
really?
That's a big number. I feel like.
Do you count the Carolina trade?
Do you count trades in that are just trades in the first round?
Doesn't
Tonight?
say.
That happened.
There's already been.
They have to happen.
tonight.
I feel like
Tonight.
tonight going into this.
I'm going to go under.
I'm going
6
under
trades?
as well.
I don't see 6 trades in the first round.
I don't think there was even a mock with 6 trades in it. Yeah, I'm going to go under.
Yeah,
on
I
that
feel
as
like
well.
there could be good 2 or 3, but
Okay.
round 1 trades within the top 10 tonight. Over under is 1. So it's either not happening or it's basically happening.
I think it's happening for sure.
I'd say
And I think
over.
there could be 2.
I think 2. Yeah, same.
Take the over.
Mhm.
Total QBs drafted in round 1. Over under 4.5.
I think it's going to be over. So I think someone will take Hooker at the back end.
Same.
Total wide receivers drafted in round 1, over under 3.5.
So most have 3, right?
Who else is the kid from TCU? Kid
So
from
there's
USC?
a kid from TCU,
Jackson
Smith and Jigba, Addison, and then sometimes Jalen Hyatt.
out of Tennessee would be the 4th.
I've seen him 31st to Kansas City in a few.
I'm going under.
I'm going to go over.
It's receivers, right? I mean, it takes. Oh, and Zay Flowers.
I think there will be.
I'll go over.
I
Somebody
think
will take
weapons.
4. Yeah,
Someone
weapons.
will take one. If you're in the AFC right now, the pressure that is on you they're all so close, they're all so great. If you're Kansas City and Jalen Hyatt sitting there,
Why not?
You got the best
kick
quarterback
the tires
in the league.
on it, man. Yeah.
Total running backs drafted in round 1, over under is 1.5. I will
Over.
take the over.
You're going to get drafted, Gibby.
I hope.
A lot of people think that's where the Eagles will get a running back. They'll take the Gibbs at 30.
If they don't trade that pick, which I think they're actively trying to do.
Okay.
Total Alabama players drafted in round 1, over under 3.5.
So you've got Brian Branch,
Will Anderson.
Will Anderson, Gibbs.
I think that's an under.
Would this be the fewest amount that they've had taken? Oh, Bryce Young.
And Bryce Young.
So over.
So you're going to get 2 right away. The question is, do you get?
They're going to get 4.
It's Alabama. They'll go over. Yeah, we forgot the number 1 pick in the
Okay.
draft. It's great. Total Georgia players drafted in round 1, over under is 3.
So Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith. That's 2 automatics.
Locks.
Broderick Jones, a tackle. This goes in the top 20 in all of these.
So you just need the 4th?
Yeah.
Or no, that would do it because it's under 3. It's not 3.5. So that would do it.
It's a push.
Yeah.
You need 4 to win, 2 to lose. 3 are locks. So I'll take the over. I don't think you can lose that.
Finally, a little fun. Total SEC number of SEC players drafted in round 1. The over-under is 12.
Well, if we just follow our simple logic, we have 8 Georgia and Bama players going in the first round. Levis, Hooker, Hyatt. That's nobody from LSU. That's nobody from Auburn, nobody from Mississippi State, nobody from, Richardson. We're at 12 in our sleep. Over.
Big
You
Ten.
know,
I
they
think
could have 4 quarterbacks. The SEC could. If Hooker goes, it'll be because it would be Hooker, Richardson, Levis,
Is
and
Texas?
Young.
Where's
No,
Texas?
they're Big 12
They're
still.
still Big 12. Okay.
Over 12.
What did he have for the Big Ten?
I'm gonna go under on that. Just because I've said over on basically everything.
Yeah, I have 2.
Let's see. I'm trying to look at.
What's this dynamic radio we're doing?
He's trying to figure out what the number is on Big 10.
What's Texas Tech
Total
right now?
Big Ten players
Big 12.
drafted in round 1, over under was 9.5.
9.5 Big 10?
Yeah.
It'll be 3 Buckeyes.
Is Texas Tech going to the SEC?
No,
They're staying Big
just
12.
Texas and Oklahoma.
Texas. Big 10, you're saying?
Yeah.
So this one would have C.J. Stroud, Devin Witherspoon from Illinois. It's 2.
Smith and Jigba and Paris Johnson.
Paris Johnson, Smith and Jigba, Lucas Van Ness from Iowa 5, Peter Skoronski, Northwestern 6.
I don't know how you get to 9.5.
Michigan doesn't have anybody that I can think of.
Maryland,
Yeah.
Deontay Banks,
Okay, that's 7.
Joey Porter Jr.,
Oh, sure. That's 8.
Wisconsin, Keanu Benton. That's the only mock I've seen him go in the first
Those
round.
last 2 are borderline. Like,
Yeah.
I've seen Porter going first pick of the second round to the Squealers.
Porter feels like someone who's going to be good.
There's a Mississippi
Yeah.
State corner that's in the Emmanuel
So that's
Forbes.
SEC too.
Top of the SEC,
Now,
yeah.
if you wanted one, the total number of Big 12 players drafted in round 1, the over-under is 4.
Well, they'll have the Texas Tech kid, Bijan, at Texas. Oklahoma's got to have somebody.
Texas
I feel like
Tech.
there's a lineman from
There was a couple of years ago, where Texas didn't have anybody drafted. The University of Texas.
I know, it's wild.
That's impossible.
Yeah. Huh. It's going to be interesting.
Dicey to say the least.
It's going to be fun. It's
All
going
right.
to be dicey.
We will continue our look around the NFL. We are in Baltimore. Take a look at the Ravens.
Nice.
Try to get an update on where they stand with all of this. Oh my gosh! Thank goodness you have Luke. When I just saw a guest, we had Cadre on. I'm like, oh my god, I can't do the Lamar thing with Cadre. So thank God. Good job out of you. Luke Jones will join us on that in a few minutes. From now, you listen to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, welcome back into Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. We are in Baltimore, and we are having a little conversation about the Ravens. As of right now at 2:18, I appear to be proven wrong, at least outwardly. I thought that they would have certainty on Lamar Jackson by now. It's possible they do.
A lot of cryptic tweets yesterday.
There are, yeah. It's possible that they do, and there's no announcement of it. I don't believe that organization would draft tonight without knowing who's their quarterback. It just seems silly to me that they would do that. And they're an organization that doesn't do a lot of silly things.
Don't.
Luke Jones will join us on some of those specifics in about 10 minutes. Between now and then, let's hit the categories in the Baltimore Ravens.
Okay. Let's.
Well, I mean, that was a loud thing, right?
It was loud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uniforms, Ravens.
They're great. They're great. Have they even changed really at all?
Yeah, they changed the helmet. The helmet used to have the crest, and now it's got the bird. When they originally launched, they had a crest.
I don't even remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Like when they won their
Subtle-
first Super Bowl, though, they were at the bird. So I mean, it's been.
Oh, I have no idea. But when they first went to Baltimore, there was a crest on their helmet instead of the bird.
I like their uniforms. I think they're great. I like the white over black. I like the purple, the black over purple, black over black, the purple over white. I love all of them.
So they only had the crest for 3 years. It was 96, 97, 98.
Okay, yeah. So they won a Super Bowl with the Raven. I don't even remember that.
Yeah, they've always had the Raven on the head. Yeah, I do too. They are the one team in the league that should be in black head to toe. And when they do, it looks great. I like their purple over white. I like their black over white. I like their white over white. I think it's all a win. It all fits. It's a good brand.
They haven't really changed anything. They've just brought back various combos at various times. And then they introduced for a while that kind of the purple over the gold, which wasn't great. But, I mean, it's been a very similar uniform for their whole existence. And they're great.
It's just what are the subtle differences even? Just like even the numerals have been pretty similar.
Very similar. The neck for a while on the white jersey, there was like a little bit of a black neck when Nike had those huge fat necks on all the jerseys back in like the early 2010s. So the neck is now all white. No, it really hasn't changed a whole lot.
They had a big white stripe on the side of their pants at one time when they had black uniforms.
Yep.
I actually didn't even mind the gold pants when they wore them. I thought those were fine too.
I didn't love the gold
But the
pants.
black is where it's at. I mean, that's the...
Mostly it's
their
basically been like, oh, we brought back the purple jersey with black pants combination for the first time since 1996. We brought back...
Yeah. They look the way that they're supposed to look. The all black would be my favorite of theirs. That's it.
Oh, it's great.
They're a Raven. That's what they should
They are
look like.
perfect.
By the way, that Raven that they have on the sidelines is the biggest damn Raven I've ever seen.
Big bird.
That thing is a monster.
Big,
I mean, we don't have them like that around here.
big
No.
Do we have ravens around here? Or are they all blackbirds? What's the difference?
Crows.
I think we have
Crows.
I don't
I
think
don't
we
know
have ravens.
what's the difference. I mean, are ravens bigger?
This is-
Something for the MIT kids to look up. Stadium. I've been there a long time ago, but it was elite.
I love it.
When I was there. It was one of my favorites. I've
Ravens
ever been.
have bigger, curvier beaks relative to crows. Both have bristles at the base of the beak. The ravens are noticeably longer. Its throat feathers are also quite shaggy. Common ravens are much less common than American crows in the eastern United States.
Okay, so I think what we have around here is probably crows.
And they're a little bit like ravens are a little bit bigger.
Yeah. That one they have on the sideline is huge. The stadium's elite.
Great stadium, great experience, great intro, great
All of it.
all of it. Great.
When you
best,
guys-
best booth in the biz for
By
now.
far.
For now.
Well, of course, it's too good a real estate.
Sasha Brown's gonna take that from us.
Yeah. You'll never see that again in a stadium ever.
No.
Midway up 50-yard line press box. No, that's a thing of days gone by.
That's right. It's prime real estate.
It really is. Road trip. Yeah, I love it. I love that whole area.
Love it.
The
DC,
whole city is
Annapolis.
awesome. Federal Hill.
But even just, I mean, like you do a little
I've had a few
tourist
nights.
weekend out of it. You go to DC, you do a little history.
Go to Annapolis.
Go to Annapolis, go to the Naval Academy. That's stunning.
You can go on a wire tour, which I did one year.
Did you really?
And Alec Shiner was a big wire aficionado, so we went and we did like some of the bars where they had been in the show, and
Yeah,
with
that's
Nolte
pretty cool.
where he would go. So yeah, it was Baltimore's awesome.
Yeah.
Food's good. Our place is Zoomy Gibbe is a delight. Sometimes you break bread with naval
Luminaries.
secretaries. By the way, shout out. Speaking of, congrats to Modes, Mr. Modley.
Yep.
His book's number one bestseller.
Fantastic.
It's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah, get it on Amazon. Do
That's
it right
great.
now.
Must thing to do on a road trip. We kind of went over that. There's a lot of different ways to do it. You could do it many a way. Player you want from their current roster.
By the way, it's called Vectors: Heroes, Villains, and Heartbreak on the Bridge of the U.S. Navy. Thomas B. Modley, #1 bestseller on Amazon, achieved yesterday. So
Awesome.
shout out. It's awesome. Yep.
That's great.
Yeah.
Player
All right.
you want from their roster.
Current roster: Player that I want from their current roster.
Who's on their D line?
Nobody of great note. It's probably Marcus Williams, the free safety, or Roquan Smith to just give us a
Beast.
dog at the second level.
Yeah, let me see.
I mean, Mark Andrews, but I believe in the Chief.
Mark Andrews would make a lot of sense, though.
No, we do have crows, by the way, in Ohio.
Crows, but no
Crows.
Ravens.
Yep.
Yeah. Crows are
Probably would
more
be Marcus.
abundant because of the clearing of Ohio's vast forests.
Yeah, I'm dealing with crows on a reg. Putty
Water
Garrity and I
balloons.
see him every morning. They got an interesting roster, like Ronnie Stanley and Linderbaum, and yeah. But I think that's it. I think you have it right. I mean,
Ronnie Stanley's not a bad one.
Ronnie Stanley would be a good one. I also think like Roquan. I like your idea of Roquan Smith. Like just forget about it. Just a dude,
that's
straight
a
dude.
monster. Yeah.
All-time favorite Raven. Ed Reed. Ed Reed.
Ed Reed was so good.
Pretty sure we put him in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, Ed Reed's a great one.
He's so cool, man. And there's not all the bravado with Ray. Like it's just
No, he was cool.
he's the coolest.
I loved him. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that's the
I
one.
like that Ed Reed.
Playoff team? Yeah, of course.
Sure.
They are every year.
Well, we got to find out who's playing quarterback for him, but yeah,
Yeah.
feels like
Doesn't
that way.
matter. It's culture can get you to where you need to be. And
It's like saying Moxie can get
see,
you
it's
where
like
you
you
need
and
to
I
go.
talked about the other day with the Squealers. Culture gets them to at least 9-8 every year.
Not this year.
Okay.
Yeah, they went 10-7 last year, Baltimore did. How many games did Hundley play?
4. I think the last 4 or 5. He's a Pro Bowler.
Pro Bowler. And they went 10-7. Impossible. With all their injuries. Makes no sense. Biggest offseason addition or loss?
They lost Ben Powers to the Broncos. And I think the only person that they've added, they lost Calais Campbell.
Mountain.
It's
of
the
a
only
man.
person that they signed this year, Nelson Aguilar. Is that
OBJ.
an OBJ? Yeah. So that's it.
Their biggest offseason addition will be who they pick in the first round tonight. And then whatever happens with Lamar. I mean, I assume he's going to be there. That's kind of what you're waiting on. What they do at 10. What they do in the draft. What do they pick, 22?
Yeah.
So, I mean, is this the spot where it's they haven't been able to draft receivers very well?
They've not at all. There's not a whole lot of coverage of everything that they've done, by the way, which is kind of amazing.
Yeah. So that's where they stand on this thing. So, but the whole thing revolves around Lamar. What does that look like? We'll get some perspective on that from Luke Jones. He will join us behind enemy lines coming up next. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, welcome back into Cleveland Browns Daily. As we continue our off-season tour, we head to Baltimore behind enemy lines with the Ravens. Ravens reporter Luke Jones from WNST Radio joins us on the Twisted Tea Hotline, brought to you by Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea, official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns. Keep it twisted, Cleveland. Luke, let's just start with the, $200 billion question with Lamar. There's from 30,000 feet, it feels like there's no information. Looking at cryptic tweets, Odell's there. There's some tweets there. How hard has this been for you guys to follow? What do you think? What do you believe to be where we are between the Ravens and Lamar?
Well, to answer your first question, it's been extremely difficult. It's been exhausting. I mean, the pre-draft buzz centered around a SpongeBob SquarePants tweet from Lamar Jackson earlier this week. So very cryptic, very little information. And as we all know by now, he doesn't have an agent. And as you guys know, agents are very much a major information channel as it relates to contracts and roster moves and things of that nature. So it's been difficult, but I've seen what everyone else has seen. Look, I think everyone around the league respects Lamar Jackson as a high-quality quarterback, whether you put him in the top 3, top 5, top 10, whatever. But given all the circumstances and given what his believed asking price has been, which is somewhere in that Deshaun Watson contract territory, there just hasn't been that movement. So this kind of feels like, not kind of, it definitely is one of those major checkpoints of this offseason to see if something happens. But, I said that at the start of the free agency. I said that when the Ravens placed the non-exclusive franchise tag on him. I thought maybe that might be a sign of movement when he made his trade request public. But no one has stepped up to the plate. So I'm not going to sit here and say there's zero chance of that, but my gut tells me that Lamar Jackson is going to be a Baltimore Raven at least for this season. Now, how that's going to play out with the tag and when he shows up and signs and all that, still very much to be determined. But short of the Ravens making a major move tonight for a quarterback, what's their alternative? So that's where I just keep coming back to, what is it, Occam's razor, where the most direct or the simplest explanation is the right one, and that's what this one just feels like as the offseason, as we get deeper into this offseason.
Are we not overblowing this a little bit, though? I mean, when you kind of look at the facts of it, you have a Pro Bowl quarterback in Tyler Huntley on your roster. So where's the leverage for Lamar? You got a Pro Bowler there in Huntley.
Well, he was
kidding,
fourth
obviously.
off. Right. But I mean, the reality is, at this point in time, look, he can want the market to say that for a team to come forward like the Browns did to get Deshaun Watson, but the market, you're always a prisoner to whatever the circumstances of the market are at any given time with players or cars or houses or whatever. And it just feels at this point in time that the market doesn't align with what Lamar is looking for. So that's the thing. And you just said it. As far in terms of his leverage, I mean, we're talking about someone who's made roughly $32 million in his career. And look, I'm not losing sleep for the guy. That's way more money than you and I will ever make. But even on the non-exclusive franchise tag this year, it would double his career earnings. So to sit there, people say, "Oh, is he going to sit out? Is he going to do anything like that?" That's where I keep coming back to this and saying, if he truly wants to cash in for what the price he wants, he certainly needs to go out there and have a great year and stay on the field and not be injured at the end of the season like the last 2 years. So, it is one of those things where you kind of just look at it, and there's a non-zero chance that there is a team that's ready to pounce, maybe after the draft, given the circumstances of the offer sheet, and then you could push back your 2 first-round picks to next year and the year after that. But I don't know. It's one of those things. As more time goes on, it's like, if this is going to happen, I feel like the wheels would have been churning at this point in time, and it just hasn't to this point.
It is kind of wild, and yes, we've talked all along. We've believed he was going to play for the Ravens or nobody, and playing for nobody makes no sense. Hence, as you said, he'll play for the Ravens this year. What did you make of the large, and I think very large, and we're big fans of this guy, the large amount of money that was just handed out to Odell Beckham? Was that to entice Lamar Jackson? And it also, I imagine, limits the money that they have for Lamar Jackson. Now, in the first year, these contracts would be structured with a $1 million contract probably in this first year anyway, as they are all around the league. But were you kind of surprised at that number for Odell, and did you feel like that was to move the needle, and yet here we are with the needle seemingly not being moved?
Well, Well, to answer your question about whether I was surprised, I was shocked. I mean, typically with the Ravens, if you tell me they're going to sign Odell Beckham, I'd say, okay, is it 2026? I mean, they always just seem to get those former star receivers that are well past their prime. Now, Beckham is 30, and the big question is, and you guys are obviously familiar with him. I mean, his last, at least relatively healthy season was 2019, his last 1,000-yard season. So that was a long time ago at this point in time. The Lamar tie-in, I think some of that's been a little overblown. I think certainly it helps. If you want to consider it an olive branch, a carrot, whatever you want, in terms of, hey, even if it's just a one-year Band-Aid, him playing on the tag, we're bringing in Odell Beckham. We want to win, and we'll see where we are at this point next year. So there's that factor. But I'll also throw out there, not sure anyone else was giving Odell Beckham $15 million. Yeah. How much did that factor in from his perspective in saying, okay, the Ravens can sell to Odell, and I think they did, that we're pretty confident Lamar is going to be here. Do we know that with 100% certainty? We don't. So, from Beckham's perspective, he's trying to revitalize his career, on a one-year deal. If there is some doubt that Lamar Jackson's going to be his quarterback, and as you mentioned, even if it is a Pro Bowl alternate in Tyler Huntley, that's certainly a drop-off. That $15 million price tag, does feel a little more like that was a case where the Ravens couldn't make him an assurance. I think it certainly helps, but again, as far as how much it drastically impacts Lamar, I don't think it does anything financially, but I do think it certainly helps in terms of if you do need to kind of just massage this thing for another year and try to play nice and sing Kumbaya for one more season, and then you try to figure it out next year at this time. Certainly helps having Odell Beckham added to that wide receiver group.
Look, just historically, this is one of the smartest organizations in the sport. They've been that way for 20 years, as long as they've been in Baltimore. They've been one of the bright spots in terms of handling all of this stuff. It's just so hard for me to believe that they would draft tonight not knowing that Lamar Jackson was going to be the quarterback or not, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, I feel that they have a high confidence level about this year. Then again, you never really know. I mean, 5 years ago, almost to the day, I wasn't convinced that they were moving on from Joe Flacco, and then they drafted Lamar Jackson, and they moved on from Joe Flacco in less than a year. So you never really know. I think there is something to be said of you've been at this for more than 2 years. Is there some resignation, even if it's long-term, in saying, we need to start planning for the future. So that doesn't mean I think they're taking a quarterback in the first round. I think that scenario with them picking at 22 is highly unlikely anyway. But I think it's something you have to at least consider when you've been at this that long, where you just ask, if both sides love each other that much, why can't you figure it out? It's almost like one of those marriages that after a while you just throw your hands up. But it's certainly it's been a major point of frustration in Baltimore. I know it's been a point of frustration for the organization. I'm sure Lamar's frustrated, but I think what was interesting and to me what was telling is we saw the numbers, the terms that Jalen Hurts just signed with the Philadelphia Eagles last week. And if you kind of look at that deal, and I'm not saying it's a carbon copy, but if you look at that deal compared to what we know about the reported offer the Ravens gave Lamar last summer, it wasn't terribly different. And that was, 7-8 months ago, whatever it was. So that tells you at the very least, even if they can't get something worked out, some of the national media perception that we've heard that the Ravens have, quote, disrespected Lamar Jackson, I'm not buying that whatsoever. We can debate whether you sweeten the pot, whether you need to increase the offer, whatever, but based on what we saw with that Hurts deal, it's not as though what the Ravens have offered him has been woefully unfair or anything like that. It just hasn't been the Deshaun Watson deal, and we've seen a number of quarterback deals go down since then, and again, not to get into it too much, but it seems that's been much more the outlier than some kind of sea change as it pertains to quarterback compensation.
No, you're exactly right. I would caution as a Cleveland Browns employee for over a decade, pick 22, not always the best spot to find a quarterback. It certainly has not been for our franchise, so I would just urge caution there to the Ravens on that regard. Going back to Odell and just kind of talking big picture about this offense with Lamar, without Lamar, Todd Monken's brought in. He spent some time here with us. I think he's very smart. Obviously did a great job at Georgia. It felt like Odell got that contract because receivers don't want to come to Baltimore. Historically, they have, and in fact, Hollywood Brown, who was very good friends with Lamar, said, I can't play here anymore. This offense isn't conducive to me making the kind of money I want to. And so you almost feel like for Odell, was it a one-year grab, or is there a belief that in the switch from Greg Roman to Todd Monken that they can actually run a passing offense that will produce the kind of numbers that the receivers and pass catchers outside of Mark Andrews would want to be a part of.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because, as I was talking about Beckham a few minutes ago, I think that's certainly part of it. And was there a little bit of a tax you have to pay there?
No doubt.
Not just because of Lamar's uncertainty, but, yeah, because of the stigma? Sure. And yeah, you can sell people and say, okay, well, Greg Roman's not here anymore, Todd Monken. Say what you want about Georgia's offense. I mean, with all the success, there was still tight ends and running backs, and we know that. But, it's not as though he wasn't part of that Tampa Bay offense before he went to Cleveland. And they had 1,000-yard receivers, and they threw the ball a ton. So, Todd Monken, his reputation has been to kind of morph his offense to best suit his players. So you bring in an Odell Beckham. He's established. You have clearly they at least think they have a high confidence level in terms of his health and where he is physically, and they know what he can do. And they've got some other young receivers like Rashad Bateman, their first-round pick 2 years ago, that they're still looking to pop and for him to stay healthy because he's been quite impressive when he's been on the field. So I think with Monken there certainly is a thought. And look, this is still a John Harbaugh team. I don't think the Ravens are going to suddenly become overly pass-happy, but I think you're going to see more balance. I think you're going to see a real aim to be more efficient and more explosive in the passing game, and certainly they think Beckham can be a big part of that if he can stay healthy.
Luke, the Ravens have been such a fixture in the postseason. It's we missed it last year. You want to get back to it. That's why you have Deshaun Watson. That's why all the things happen. Man, you look around this AFC now with Rodgers in here too. We were doing this earlier in the week on the show. There's like 8, 9, 10 teams in the AFC that look in the mirror in the morning and say, yeah, we can go win the Super Bowl. I don't know that we've ever seen anything like this. And I think with that comes tremendous pressure to keep pace, doesn't it?
It's wild. It really is. I was just talking to one of our guys at WNST about this earlier today where you look around. I mean, how about Russell Wilson now with Sean Payton? I mean, as much as Russell Wilson was a kind of a disaster last year, I don't think anyone's ready to or should be writing him off.
No,
we're not.
So, yeah, I mean, you look at the AFC East now where, wow, it feels like the New England Patriots are the team that is, kind of at the bottom looking up at everyone. I mean, the AFC North with, the Ravens assuming Lamar and obviously what Joe Burrow and the Bengals have done. And, we'll see what Kenny Pickett looks like in year 2 with Pittsburgh. And, we've talked about the AFC West, going back to last year with Herbert and Russell Wilson and, the King and Patrick Mahomes. I mean, it's just, you like you just said, you can rattle off 8, 9, 10 teams where you can make a very reasonable argument to make the playoffs. But there's only 7, right? So, I mean, it really is wild, and that's where I'd be remiss if I didn't at least mention, there's been smoke as crazy as it is, and I'm not convinced. DeAndre Hopkins, there's been smoke still for the Ravens to even be after him. Now, also Kansas City and Buffalo, you've heard some reports and rumors there, but with this being the draft, that's another big name. And you just mentioned this arms race with all this offensive firepower on all these quarterbacks. It'd be something if DeAndre Hopkins joined the mix somewhere in the AFC coming over from Arizona. So that's just something else to whet your appetite as we get ready for the draft tonight.
It's going to be wild. If you had to give us, you're turning in the card, who do the Ravens take?
I think it's going to be a corner. I could really see Deonte Banks from Maryland. I think
Yep.
Joey Porter Jr. from Penn State. I think those are the two. First of all, those would both would be fun stories. I mean, the former Pittsburgh Steelers son, who was such a
Yep.
bitter rival of the Ravens.
Yep.
And in the case of Deonte Banks, it'd be the first Terp that the Ravens have drafted since Torrey Smith in 2011. Both fill their biggest immediate need at cornerback opposite Marlon Humphreys. So my gut tells me it's going to be one of those two guys, which tells you it probably won't be either of them because that's just how this goes. And I'm very rarely am I correct talking about the draft, but hey, it's still a lot of fun.
It sure is, Luke. Great talking to you, man. Thanks so much for your time.
No problem. Glad to do it.
That's Ravens reporter Luke Jones from WNST Radio on the Twisted Tea Hotline, brought to you by Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea, official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns. Keep it twisted, Cleveland.
When was the last time there was this much kind of uncertainty around a Baltimore Ravens team? It has to have been quite some time, right?
Probably going into what was Harbaugh's lame duck year, the year that they drafted Lamar. The drafting of Lamar, they still had Flacco at that point. They'd recently paid him. Harbaugh was attached to Flacco at the hip, and I remember specifically in that draft, just not Baltimore with him. that was one of those things where with Lamar, he was so electric at Louisville, but it was also like kind of had to be the right place.
Right. And what's wild about that, we say that turmoil, that lame duck year, they had gone 9-7 the year before. Then they go 10-6 as Lamar kind of takes over at the end of that season. They get blasted in the wild card game, remember, by the Chargers, who played 3 safeties, and we're like, oh, everybody's got it all figured out. Then he comes out and is the MVP. Yeah, it's wild. I mean, the only losing season that Harbaugh's ever had he had 2. He had 2021, they went 8-9. And in 2015, they went 5-11.
Yeah, they just don't. It's just not what they do.
No. They've been to the playoffs, though, for the last 5 years. Now, they have not gotten deep into the playoffs. They haven't gotten past the divisional round. Lamar's only won 1 playoff game.
Well, and the other thing that's really difficult is they're in an AFC now where you've got to be able to throw it when everybody knows you're going to be able to throw it, and you got to be able to score 40 in the postseason, 35 in the postseason. They're not built for that.
They're not, and they won't be as long as he's their quarterback, and that's why I think, honestly, the best thing for Lamar, his best path to win a Super Bowl as a player is in the NFC.
Yeah.
It just is. It's just the gauntlet that you have to go through in the AFC is just too tough. There will be a game where you are not going to control the game script and the 4 games you're going to need. It's just that's the way it is. So I think that all parties would benefit from that, and it will be. I'd be curious to see now if I'm them, and let's say an Anthony Richardson falls, I'm taking a shot on him, or I'm trading up to get him and going and sending Lamar somewhere. The notion that nobody wants Lamar is insane to me.
Of course. I mean, you put him on Atlanta right now.
Favorites.
They're the favorites in the division. So
yeah.
No, I'm with you. And I think those are I don't know. Maybe that is something that happens tonight. Can you imagine?
Put them on Washington. Put them on the Commanders.
Well, I think the Commies are a team that's ripe to go 1-16. They might be too good for it on their defensive line.
Their defense is way too good for it.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is that
they still have that front. They kept them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to just – and they've got Dotson and McLaurin and that the kid they had, was it Brian Robinson, the guy who got shot in the leg?
Yeah, Robinson, the kid out of Alabama.
Yeah, he's solid.
Yeah. I don't know. Going to be I'd love to get him out of there. That would be a mess, though. Can you imagine Odell with a rookie quarterback? If Richardson fell or something like that, that would not go well.
No.
All right, so much more to come. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, welcome back into Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. What would shock you tonight? In recent years, we've gotten the A.J. Brown trade. We've gotten
Obviously,
the Rodgers wants out happened in the draft here a couple of years ago.
I think it would shock me. Ravens taking a quarterback would shock me. I think a stud receiver being traded for a pick wouldn't shock me, but it would also be fun. And then to me, it just feels like if Miami was going to do anything and be like, you know what, I just don't understand how they can have assembled this roster and be like, we can roll with Tua.
And it has nothing to do with his talent. His talent is fine. It's just his health. Like the fact that you would just, are they waiting on?
Stafford knows that system.
Right.
Like it's a similar thing to what he did with McVay. It's built off of many of the same principles.
Right.
Like that would be the one. Stafford to Miami.
1 minute.
But they don't have a 1.
Do they need a 1 for him? Or do they get a future 1 for him? Do they care? Like I don't
know what the Rams care
about. Are you
about.
trying to? It doesn't feel like they're built to compete.
No. And then
I
if you
feel like
trade
a
him, do you
player-
trade Donald too?
Like last year, wasn't it Marquise Brown that got traded?
AJ
Brown.
And Marquise Brown.
Marquise
Marquise
Brown
too.
got
Yeah,
traded
yeah,
too.
yeah.
Like,
And AJ.
is Hopkins getting moved somewhere tonight?
Could be. That could be that Arizona.
That would be the receiver. Yeah.
That could be the way that thing goes. I still love it. We don't have a pick. I'll still love it. It'll be on all
be
night.
great.
I'll be in. I'll be into it. And you can listen to you guys, right? You have that to look forward to, which is very, very nice.
Oh, baby.
Yeah.
Lots of coverage. 7 o'clock, News 5.
Let's go.
8 o'clock till midnight, radio all on Cleveland Brown, University Hospital's Cleveland Browns radio network.
There you go. Next Level's next. We're back tomorrow. Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland.